Chapter 1. Come downstairs, my love. It's time to get yourself dressed up. Mom sent me a message through MindLink. Yes, Mom, I'm coming. I closed my book that I was reading quickly and ran downstairs. Mum was waiting for me with my dress in her hands. Come on, dear, hurry up. Mum smiled and pulled me by her hand to the living room. You can change in here today. The boys have already left to meet their friends. I nodded and began to change my clothing. Mum was trying to get the dress over my head. Oh, Mum, I told you, I'm not 5-year-old anymore. I can put it on myself. Mum sighed and gave me the dress. All right then, but I'll do the ribbon anyway. I took over the dress and started to put it on. First over my head, then arms and legs. Turn around, dear, Mum said, and I followed her instruction. I turned my back to her and soon I felt my dress tug me at the waist. Done, Mum said in a happy tone. Go and check yourself in the mirror. Hurry! I nodded and walked towards the mirror. I froze in astonishment. I couldn't believe it was me. The dress was absolutely beautiful. It stopped just above my knees, and the sleeves were loose and went over my wrists. The print was captivating. It had a pink and blue floral print, with a white ribbon wrapping all the way around my waist. I looked up at my face. I didn't do anything to it, but for some reason it looked different. Maybe because the dress made my electric blue eyes pop. Thank you, Mum. I look perfect. I love you. I love you too, my dear. Now, time to go and join the party. I smiled at her and ran towards the front door. Bye, Mum. Bye, my dear. Have an amazing night, Mum said with a smile on her face. Oh, and also, my sweetie. What is it, Mum? I turned around and looked at her. Keep it in mind that you might meet your mate tonight. I playfully rolled my eyes at her and ran out the door, meeting with the brisk wind. Diana, finally. I thought you weren't coming tonight. Well, I giggled and turned towards Grace. Mom wanted me to come. Oh, by the way, I love your dress today. It looks great. Thank you so much, Grace. Actually, that's exactly what I thought when I looked in the mirror. All of a sudden, I had a strange feeling. I felt like my chest was tightening, which made it hard to breathe for me. Do you feel it too? Grace asked me. Yes. I nodded. It's definitely not right. I walked towards the village's fence and peered into the darkness of the forest. I felt like something was watching me, but I couldn't see it. Aha, gotcha! A familiar voice sounded in my ears. Hank, what are you doing here? Grace asked. It was nobody but Hank, my big brother. Hank, is this some sort of trick or what? I asked while crossing my arms over my chest. No, of course not, my dear sister, Hank said. I'm just here to retrieve you. I don't like the way you talk today. I rolled my eyes. Why don't you like it, my dear sister? I am a very polite big brother for you. Hank laughed. Wait, where were I? Oh, yes. Hank marched towards us and grabbed us by our wrists. Then he started to haul us towards the bonfire. I have 2 friends that would like to meet you two. No need to thank me. Boys? Grace and I shouted it out simultaneously. You mean 2 boys who want to see us? Well, I guess Grace was more excited than I was. To be honest, I was a bit nervous about this kind of stuff. Yes, you are right, ladies. They are 2 boys. Ah, look, there they are. Hank released our wrists and pointed to 2 guys waiting beside each other. One was wearing a dark dress shirt with a tie and dark dress pants. The other was wearing the same, but not as dark, and he had his hands in his pockets. Hey guys, over here, Hank called out. I froze as they started to make their way towards us. As for Grace, you could feel the excitement radiate off of her. I didn't want to make any contact with them, so I kept my head low, staring at the ground. Hello? I looked up to the most beautiful hazel eyes I've ever seen. Oh, hey, hi. Oh gosh, I stuttered. The guy standing in front of me held out his hand. My name is Paul, and this is Larry. We are friends of your brother, Hank. I took his hand hesitantly and greeted. Hi, my name is Diana. A smile showed up on his face, taking me off guard. Diana. That's a perfect name for a beautiful lady like you. My face felt so hot and my cheeks turned red. Well, thank you. That's my friend Grace. Grace, just say hi. I gestured towards her just to change the subject. We both looked towards our 2 friends who were flirting up a storm. Grace was blushing like a madwoman, where Larry was trying to get really, really close to my friend. As they continued to flirt, Paul and I stood there in awkward silence. It was so uncomfortable. "So," Paul started, "would you like to dance?" "Wait, what?" I took a step back by the surprise. Paul chuckled and held out his hand. "Don't be shy, Diana. Trust me, it would be a good idea to break the ice and all. I mean, everyone is dancing around the bonfire, our friends are obviously flirting, and your brother is checking out some girls." I quickly took a glance at my brother. He was not helping me at all. How could he be so cruel to her own sister? I finally turned back and took Paul's hand hesitantly. Sure." Paul's smile grew and he led me closer to the bonfire where the whole festival was. "But I don't know how to dance, so—" He turned around and smiled. "Look around. Most people are just bouncing around, but it still looks like they're doing it right." I nodded and he continued to pull me along. When we reached to where the pack was dancing, Paul turned around. "You ready?" I gave a small smile and nodded. "I guess." The music was rock, so it was loud and easy to bounce to. I closed my eyes and let my body move to the music. When I opened them, I saw a surprised Paul. "I thought you just told me that you didn't know how to dance." A blush crept up my neck. "No, I don't." "But you are dancing pretty well, Diana." He smiled. We continued to dance, but I felt a bit wrong, even dangerous if I may say it. By the time we were done dancing, we were tired, exhausted. Paul took me by my hand and led me to where no other pack members were, behind a huge building, the pack house. "What are we doing here?" He turned and gave me another smile, but this one felt different. It felt off, and a little threatening. He sat in the grass and patted a spot next to him. I thought we could get to know each other better. I nodded and sat beside him. "So, your brother told me that well, he basically said you are the runt of the pack." I felt a lump swell in my throat. Why, out of all things, my brother tells him that I'm the runt. I sighed. Yeah. I'm not really good at anything. But he told me about your feelings and how they're always right. That's something you're good at, feeling things." I nodded. Yeah, for some reason I have these senses. I feel something, it turns out to happen. I'm just different." He surprised me by laughing. "You're a good different. I mean, look at you. You're beautiful, and you're fun." I turned to him and gave him a genuine smile. "I'm glad you think so. You're like the—" I started to tense. A feeling. I had one. I turned towards the fence line and peered out into the darkness of the forest again. There was something defiantly out there. I could smell it. It was a smell I didn't recognize. "Are you all right?" I snapped out of my reverie and turned towards Paul. Yeah, just fine." "Are you sure?" "You don't look like all right." I nodded. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." I knew that wasn't quite convincing, but there was nothing else I could say. "Paul," I tried to change the subject a bit, "why aren't you here with your mate?" My brother told me all his friends have found their mates. He was seemingly a bit shocked by my question, but he soon pulled himself together. I rejected her. She was banished from our pack, so I had no choice but to leave her. I could feel his pain in the air. I felt like I had crossed the line, which I was not supposed to. "Now I have a question for you, Diana." I looked up at him, waiting patiently. "Would you ever betray your pack?" His question took me by surprise. Why would he ask me that? No, of course not. Yeah, they make fun of me for being different, but I wouldn't go that far. I felt his breath hitch a little. "Such a shame." "What?" I puzzled and asked. Without answering, he reached into his pockets and pulled out a small glass bottle, a lighter, and a cigarette. "What do you mean?" I asked again. He stood up and threw the glass bottle at the pack house, causing it to shatter and spill, its contents on the wall. He then lit his cigarette and took a long drag of it. "What I mean is that it looks like you won't live." I stood quickly and took a step away from him. "What are you doing, Paul? What are you talking about?" He turned to me with an evil smirk on his face. "Exactly what it means." He then threw his cigarette on the pack house. It immediately caught on fire. Gasoline. It was gasoline in that bottle. Howls started to erupt from the forest, startling me. What was going on? There was only one thing I could possibly do. Ift. I began to do so. My bones began to crack and snap and form. Patches of hair started to grow from my body, and a snout started to form. I barely ever shifted, so the pain was unimaginable. I released a howl as I finally turned into my wolf form. Impressive. You know, you're the first blue-eyed wolf I've ever seen, but I shall never see you again. He stepped closer, causing me to release a growl. All of a sudden, screeching and howls erupted from the village. We were under attack. I could sense it. I know you had your feeling, when you were freaking out and looked towards the forest. So I'll go ahead and tell you what you felt. You felt a rogue. I took a step back, making Paul laugh. I'm sorry it had to be like this, but this is for the best. But, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a chance to run away. I forced a growl out, trying to seem more confident. Rip him into shreds, my wolf yelled in fury. Paul turned his back on me and began to walk towards the screeching sounds of the innocent. I thought that was a nice dress. Too bad you ripped it. With that, he disappeared into the smoke. I quickly ran towards my house. I needed to check up on Mum. On my way, I passed the pack's warriors fighting against the rogues. But from what I could see, we were falling to them. I passed so many of my pack members' bodies. Blood was shredded everywhere. I reached our house, but I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Our house was burning. Mum, where are you? I sent her a message through MindLink. No respond. I began to run around the house, searching for her. Diana. I skidded to a halt and nearly collapsed at the sight. It was Mum, and she was dying. She had blood surrounding her, and she was sprawled onto the ground with many wounds in her. She wasn't even in wolf form. My love, don't talk, just listen, she said while breathing heavily. Oh, just run. Get out of here. Please. She began to groan, and I stepped forward. She tried to push me away, but she couldn't, since she was literally running out of strength. Please, just. She went silent and stopped moving. I think she was gone. My wolf began to go crazy. She wanted to fight so badly, but I held her back. I released a howl of pain. They killed my mother. They killed her, and it's all Paul's fault. Paul, I trusted him. We all did. He was friends with my older brother. I left him with Grace. I've got to find them. I darted from my mother's body, swearing I'll bury it once this was over. As I took a turn towards the bonfire, I stopped. Hank was in wolf form holding off 3 rouges, while Grace was still in human form, crying over a body. It was Larry. He wasn't part of the attack. I thought that he was, since he came here with Paul, but I was wrong. Paul had tricked him. He had tricked everyone. I was snapped from my reverie by a howl of pain. I looked at my brother who had taken down a rogue. He was one of the best fighters in the pack. He could hold his own. I rushed to him and sent him a mind link. Where's Solomon and Thomas? It took a moment before he sent one back. They're patrolling on the border. My brothers are still fulfilling their duty. I only wish they could run for their own lives. I was snapped from my thoughts when a rogue swiped for my head. Luckily, Hank blocked it. Just get Grace out of here now. She can't fight in the condition she's in. I nodded and ran to Grace, immediately sending her a mind link. Turn to wolf form. We have to go. She looked up at me. There was no emotion in her eyes. He might have been my mate Diana. Come on, Grace, just turn. She nodded slowly and began to turn, whimpers escaping her mouth. When she finished, she stepped beside me. I'm ready. I nodded and began to run, Grace in pursuit. Hank was still holding the roads back, buying us time. We passed so many bodies, it was hard to distinguish who was who, given the fact that we were running truly fast. All of the buildings were on fire. Some of our pack members were just sitting in the grass by their burning houses, awaiting their death. I shook the thought of them out of my head and continued to focus on our escaping. Diana, we're about to pass the fence line. I nodded and pushed myself to run faster. We have to pass it and keep running until we find a safe place. Grace didn't give me a respond. I knew that she understood. It's just that she didn't want to accept the fact that we had to leave the village. When we were closing up on the fence line, we didn't slow down. Instead, we started to push ourselves to the limit to speed up, and we did it. We finally crossed the fence line. Can we stop now? Grace asked me. I shook my head and answered, No, Grace, we can't stop now. We have to go farther. Away from this? I could feel her uneasiness, but I knew she agreed. We continued to run for 10 more minutes at full speed until I collapsed. I've lost all my strength. Are you okay? I nodded and tried to stifle my heavy panting, but it was no use. Diana, if you look back at the village, it doesn't look like it's on fire. It looks like the festival is still in full swing. I looked towards our village as Grace was doing. She was right. But if only it was just the festival. Mum wouldn't be dead. Grace, my mum, she's dead. I began to whimper, and Grace started to nudge me. Who knew that the festival of celebrating the moon goddess would become a disaster? I nearly jumped up as howls started to erupt from nearby. The rogues, they were tracking us. Diana, can you stand on your feet? I tried to lift myself up but fell right back down. No, I can't. Grace, just run for your own life. Grace shook her head. Turn to human form. I'll carry you on my back. But I have no clothes. She started to nudge me. Who cares? Just hurry. I nodded and began to shift. My bones began cracking and popping back into place. The fur on my body began to disappear along with my snout. Soon, I was a 15-year-old girl in the nude next to a giant wolf. Now climb on. I nodded and did so. Once I was on top, I held onto her fur tight, letting her know I was ready. She began to run as fast as she could, but I could tell she was too tired. Diana, how close are they? I looked back and peered into the darkness. Very close. About 20 feet. I could feel Grace start to growl. Rub your arms on my fur. N-O-W. I didn't ask questions. I did exactly what she said. Diana, I promise you, we will see each other again. Grace, what are you? Before I could finish, Grace bucked me off of her. My body began to roll down one of the steep hills in the forest. I crashed into many bushes and trees, and worst of all, the rogues were still chasing my friend. Then I understood it all. She had me rub my scent onto her. She was risking her life for me. She wanted me to survive. My body continued to roll. I could feel wounds etching themselves into my torso, arms and legs. And when my head hit an oak tree, I didn't feel anything else. I fell into complete and total darkness. Chapter 2. Next morning, when I awoke from the sun hitting my eyes, my body was still in pain. I looked down at my body and automatically blushed. I was naked. And that's when the memories of last night returned. Death. It was all too much for me. I stood up on my feet using all of my strength and started to shift so that I wouldn't be naked anymore. My bones began to crack and shift, fur started to sprout from my body, and a snout formed. The process didn't hurt as bad as it did last time, but it was still painful. When I was fully shifted, I began to hike up the hill. From where I was at, I could smell the smoke of my village. I knew from the deep of my heart that it was all over, but I simply refused to accept it. I hoped that there could be injured survivors. But there was only one thing that was racing through my mind. A promise I made last night. I had to bury Mother. The moment I recalled her death, my tears started to trickle down my face. It wasn't fair. She was one of the only pack members that didn't care. I was different. And now, she was gone. I shook the thought from my head and continued to climb. When I reached the top of the hill, I immediately paused. The forest was in dead silence. Usually there would be birds chirping by now, but there was no sound. None. I began to walk up the path to the village. The trail I was on had dozens of footprints. I could tell which ones were the rogues and which ones were Grace's just by looking at them. Grace. She was somewhere out there, either dead or suffering. And it was all my fault. More tears filled up my eyes, but I held them back. Pull yourself together, Diana. You want to believe that she's alive. Grace is alive. As I continued, the smell of smoke got stronger, and the memories of screams filled my head. I forced myself to keep going, even though my legs were aching and the memories were painful. But all I could think about was that I wanted to get to the village fast. I came to a halt when I heard rustling in a bush. A rogue? I got into fighting position and started to growl. Diana, kill it if it's a rogue. Remember what they did to our pack last night. My wolf growled. I promise I will, don't worry. Before I knew it, a yellow fluffy ball jumped from the bush. I ducked as it flew over my head. The thing was crazy. I turned to face it, but it wasn't what I expected it to be. It was a little puppy. I could see fear in its eyes, most likely because I looked so dreadful. So I did the simplest thing I could. I stopped growling. When it realized I wasn't going to hurt it, it started to wag its fluffy tail and bounce its way up to me. I didn't have time for this. I turned my back on it and started to make my way to the village. But soon, I realized it was a big mistake. It started to whimper and whine. Oh, my lovely puppy. How could I abandon such an adorable creature like you while you were sitting there and crying? I decided to adopt it. That's all it took. It stopped its little fit and actually tried to play with me. It began to circle my legs beneath me and playfully bite my toes. That's when I realized it. Only baby animals do that. What a lovely pup is it. Just tell the little thing to go away. We don't even have a place to settle ourselves, my wolf said to me coldly. But it's so cute. I can't just leave it here. My wolf was right though. I really needed to be somewhere. But how could I abandon this pup? That's when the idea came to me. I would just bring it along. I nudged the pup from underneath me and picked it up by its neck roll. It tried to give up a fight, but eventually gave up and just let me hold on to it. So there, I continued my walk with my new companion, Puppy. I'll just change its name later. When we reached the fence line, I nearly collapsed. Everything was ashes. There were some buildings left, but they were badly burnt. I looked around everywhere. There were bodies with ashes on top, and they weren't just deceased adults, there were children as well. Some were in human form, but from what I could see, most of the pack were in wolf form. I gently placed the tiny pup down and made my way to where I had left my mother, by our burning house. The house was in ashes now. Nothing stood to indicate that it was even a building. The only thing that was noticeable was a body, Mum's body. She was in the position I had left her in, sprawled onto the grass with blood surrounding her. I promised myself I would come back to bury you, Mum. I'm sorry I couldn't have saved you. If a wolf could cry, I was doing a pretty good job at it. I could feel tears stain my fur. She's gone. We couldn't save her. I nodded to my wolf. No, we didn't. I jumped at the sound of her squeaky bark. When I turned, I saw the pup with a ratted blue dress in its mouth. I guess the pup is good for something. I began to shift back, ignoring the pain. When I was finished, I reached for the dress the pup was holding. It gave it up willingly. Isn't this Mum's old blue dress? Tears started to trickle down my face uncontrollably. Yeah, it is. I slipped the dress on. You know those dresses that are from, like, the 80s? They're short-sleeved, go over your knees, and they sprawl out. Well, that's what this dress was, and it was Mom's favourite colour, baby blue. Well, look who's back. I shivered at the voice of the man who started this. I will never forget this voice. It was Paul. What are you doing here? I asked furiously. Oh, don't treat me like that. I just came to look at the scene. I didn't expect to see you here in another beautiful dress. I turned to Paul with hatred in my eyes. Why did you do it? His face went emotionless as he sighed. You know how I told you my mate was kicked out of the pack and I had to reject her because of it? Well, now there's no pack, I can have the love of my life. She said all I had to do was this, so I, damn you idiot. Haven't you thought about the chance that she's manipulating you? She doesn't care about you, and you stand up for... Within seconds, Paul had me by the throat, feet dangling above the ground. All I could do was struggle, but each time I did that his grip tightened. She's my mate. I have to stand up for her. I have to love her, or else I get hurt. Do you know the pain of it? Oh wait, that's right, you don't. You've never even met your mate. He released his grip and I fell to the ground, coughing like crazy. You just don't understand, Diana. The pain is unbearable, he said while turning his back to me. He's telling me about pain. He ruined my life. Pain, I choked out while getting to my feet. You know there's a thing called pain, but you destroyed my life. You murdered my friends and family, and now you're telling me about pain. I charged him with balled fists. I knew that he sensed me coming, but he didn't move when I struck him. I kept hitting and hitting him, but he just stood there, taking all the hits. I hate you. I hate you. I will kill you right here, right now. Tears began to well up in my eyes and trickle down. What a devil. How could he do this? Paul quickly turned around and grabbed my wrists. I'm sorry, Diana. I wish it didn't have to be this way. You can come with me. We have a pack of our own. Just take my hand. I shoved him off of me and crumpled to the ground. Get lost, you traitor. Why would I join a group of murderers like you? He sighed and started to rub the back of his neck. You know, if I would have just forgotten about my mate when I rejected her, this would have never happened, and I would have fallen in love with you. I looked up at him as the wind started to pick up. His brown locks started to rustle, and his eyes showed sorrow. What the heck are you talking about, you butcher? I will never fall in love with you. He nodded and turned his back on me. I know I love my mate, but for some reason, I can't stop thinking about you. Does he really mean it? I thought to myself, don't listen to him. We have a mate of our own somewhere out there. Maybe my wolf was right. Last night, I went to your house and packed your clothing, your books, and some food in a trunk and left it beside the fence line before your house caught on fire. I knew you would want to come back. I don't know why I did it though. He began to walk away. Maybe we'll see each other again. I wish for that day. With that, he disappeared into the forest. I dried my eyes with the palms of my hands and looked around the ashes. Puppy was jumping and bouncing into several piles of it, trying to entertain itself. I don't think I can forgive him with all the damage he did. Just forget about what he said. Let's just concentrate on burying our pack members and burning the dead rogues. I nodded in agreement. My wolf was right. There are other things to worry about. I got back to my feet and made my way to one of the buildings that weren't burnt down. The tool shack. The door was burnt to ashes, so it was easy to get in, and the tool that I wanted was lying on the ground. A shovel. I grabbed it by its hilt and dragged it out. Then I found that was perfect for the graves. I began to dig. First hole for the Alpha, killed in battle. Second hole for the Luna, killed in battle. Third hole for the Beta, killed in battle. Fourth hole for Gianna Jones, killed in battle. Fifth hole for Hank Jones, killed in battle. Sixth hole for Thomas Jones, killed in battle. Seventh hole for Solomon Jones, killed in battle. I kept digging hole after hole until each member of my pack had one. 87 holes. I then went to each body and hauled them to their graves. Each one I cried for. After burying them, I dragged the shovel back to the tool shack and took the gasoline tank and matches. It's time to light them up. I nodded and went back outside. I placed the tank and matches down, then began to drag the bodies of the dead rogues and pile them up. Are you ready? As ready as I can be. I nodded and went to retrieve the gas tank and matches. Once, when I had the gasoline tank in hand, I began to pour its contents onto the stack of bodies. Then I lit up the matches and threw it onto them as well. They were in flames. Suddenly, I felt something wet licking my bare feet. Chill, it's the pup. I looked down at the pup who was seeking for attention. What do you want? It ignored me and curled into a ball. You know what, I think I'll call you Puppy Eric. I smiled lightly at the name. It was from a book Mum had got to me a while back. The Hunger Games. Suits you better than Puppy. I picked up the tiny thing and started to stroke it gently. Can you go look for a house that's not badly burnt? I'm pretty sure the pup understood, because it hopped from my hands and ran to one of the buildings. Let's go retrieve our stuff. I nodded and searched for the trunk that was supposedly by the fence line. Soon, I spotted it. As I was walking towards the trunk, howls started to erupt from deep within the forest. The rogues. Don't worry about it, those are howls of departure. They're leaving and going somewhere else. I released a breath. I had no idea I was holding. I really couldn't deal with anything else. When I reached the trunk, I grabbed it by one of its handles and began to drag it. Soon enough, I was in the house, the pup picked out with my trunk at my feet. This is where I would start my new life, in my old village. The village where I grew up in, and the one had been destroyed. I'm going to rebuild everything but live alone, with the acceptation of Puppy Eric. But I would be known as a rogue to other wolves and packs. I have nowhere else to turn to, but here. Chapter 3. Eric. Time for lunch, I shouted as I placed a small bowl of rabbit meat onto the ground. A moment later, an average-sized pup came striding in through the door. It's been 3 years since I first met Puppy Eric. 3 years since I became a rogue. And 3 years since my friends and family were killed at that night. But now, everything was running smoothly for me. When the rogue attack happened, it caused my village to burn down. It took me a whole day just to bury everyone. a week to clear all the ash, and a month to build a stronger wall around the destroyed village. With the wall, it's easier to be protected. Rogues usually pass by, but they know better than to bother coming in. A year after the attack, all the plants and trees that were burned down started to grow again. Now, the village looks like a fortress built in a forest. All right, Eric, you hold down the fort. I'm just going to go out and pick some berries. The pup looked up from its bowl to look at me and nodded, then continued to eat. I exited the dining room and entered the corridor. But then I realized I forgot to grab something. I mentally slapped my face. Since I was going to go gather today instead of hunt, I needed to get my basket. I ran back into the dining room and retrieved my basket from the table. Then I ran back through the corridor and out the door. When I stepped outside, the breeze slapped me in the face. Around me, the trees and bushes were rustling. Strong wind. I didn't mind the wind though. In fact, I enjoyed it. I loved how it would gently raise my long blonde hair and have it surround me. It was absolutely breathtaking. Don't forget to pay them a visit, Diana. You seem to forget a lot of things lately. I shook my head at my wolf. I won't, don't worry. And hey, I only forgot the basket, but I quickly remembered that. Sure, just wait until you look into a mirror. Until I look into a mirror? Oh, forget it. Now let's get going. Okay. I'm going. I did as my wolf told me, and began to stroll down a little dirt path to visit them. When I reached their resting spots, I crouched down and placed a hand on one of the gravestones made of bark. Gianna Jones, cause of death, killed in battle, 1973-2013. Loving mother of Hank Jones, Solomon Jones, Thomas Jones, and Diana Jones. Hey guys. I just wanted to stop by and say, I miss you all so much. A lot has happened since you all, died. Like, you should have seen Eric yesterday. He caught a rabbit and literally did a backflip of joy. That was lunch for today. Right now, I'm going to gather some berries to make a pie for us. I'll try to stop by tomorrow. Love y'all. I knew they heard when the breeze shifted a little. It was just a small feeling I had. I just felt like they were dwelling in the breeze. All right, let's go get us some berries. I nodded and got to my feet. It's been a while since I actually went gathering. I once tried to grow my own fruit and vegetables so that I didn't have to often leave the safety behind the walls. But, well, let's just say the crops didn't turn out well. I began my pursuit towards the opening of the wall. As I was trudging along, the breeze started to shift. It seemed the wind had gotten colder and the air was too thin to breathe in. I recognized this feeling, and I haven't felt this since that one day, 3 years ago. Could it be him? Would he come back for me? I shook the crazy thought from my head. That idea was preposterous. I haven't seen him in forever. Why would he show up now? It's not him. Trust me, this feeling was a little off, a bit different. Let's just focus on the berries. We should get them as soon as possible, just in case anything happens. I nodded and continued walking towards the opening. Soon enough, I was no longer in the safety of my wall. Well, where should we look for the berries first? It took a while before my wolf answered me. I guess she was thinking, do they even think? That might be a mystery. Keep straight. I smell something really good that way. Must be some delicious berries. Wait. Does that mean she could actually smell while being inside me? Do we share the same nose? Oh, hey, are you listening to me? I said go straight. Oh, right, I'm listening. Sorry, I was just thinking about something. I shook the crazy idea off my head and marched forward. Onward, to the berries. For some reason, as I continued to walk, my body started to shiver, tingle. Something it's never done before. It was non-stop. Are you sure the berries are over here? I asked while shaking. Not that I wanted to, though. No answer. Hello? I'm absolutely positive. And they smell so good. Oh, divine moon goddess, it's driving me crazy. Whoa, okay, calm yourself. If only I was paying attention to where my feet were stepping. But of course, I wasn't. I tripped over a small log and began to tumble. And of course, the tumbling turned into rolling. Why, oh why, out of all places to fall on my face, it has to be on a small hill. When the rolling ceased, I slowly got to my feet and picked up my basket, which, by the way, survived the fall. Ow, Diana, you are so dumb. Hey, I was too busy talking to you. So therefore, Wait, look, the berries. I turned and saw the tiniest bush I'd ever seen. Those are the berries. I crouched down and started to poke them. These are the berries? They're so tiny. And they're not even ripe. I don't think these ones are even edible. Wait, shush. Be quiet and listen. What? Just do it. I nodded and started to listen. There was no sound. Only the chirping of birds and the howl of the wind. But then I heard leaves crunching. Crunch after crunch. That's the smell. Does my wolf really want me to see what is making that crunching sound? Go see what it is. I guess so. I whispered in a hushed tone. I really don't want to die today. Let's just go back home. No. Please, it really smells good.